Before we continue with the analysis, I want to talk to you guys about JerseyFIFA.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that's the latest home shirts, the latest away shirts, tracksuits, or even retro kits, Jersey FIFA has a bit of everything. There really is something for everyone, so if you are interested, then make sure to use the link in the description down below and head to JerseyFIFA.com. Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today on the channel we've got a slightly different sort of video. Basically, I'm not feeling very well at the moment. I mean, you can probably see the bags under my eyes. I'm a little bit rough, but I still want to get you guys some content. So I've thought, what can I do which is still content for you guys, but it's quite easy for me to do, but it's still actually like relevant and important to talk about. And I thought, the future of the Manchester United squad. So what we're going to do today is go through basically the whole squad. If anyone's missing, I can only apologise, I didn't actually make the tier list. But we're going to go through the squad and discuss which players should stay, which should be sold, which should go on loan, etc, etc. So that's what we're going to do today. Let me know what you think in the comments down below for all of these different players. Who are the players that you'd be getting rid of, keeping, loaning, selling, whatever. We're just going to get straight into it. Like I said, I might be a bit low energy at times in this video, but again, I want to make sure that you guys got the content. Now, of course, the decisions with some of these players in this list is going to be really, really easy. For example, first up here, we've got Antony. There is no debate here about where Antony's going to go. Antony is certainly a player which should stay at the squad. Spent, what, £100 million on him last summer. And I think he's really been improving, really been developing as the season's gone on. And I think as Ten Hag gets this side closer and closer to the style that he wants to play, Antony will be a big part. So there's no doubt there, you've got to keep Antony. Next up, Jack Butland, bought in on loan in January. I mean, he hasn't played. We're going to put him in this column because there isn't actually a column for kind of send back to their club. Butland isn't a player which really needs to stay at the club. I'm sure there's another young goalkeeper or something which United could bring in on loan as a third choice goalkeeper. So yeah, not too much to discuss with Jack Butland. He's a United player, but is he really? Not past this season, I don't think. Someone which will be a United player way past this season is Casemiro. Absolutely 100% keep him. I know over the past couple of months he hasn't been himself, of course missing a lot of games with suspension, and then he has had these weird performances since returning. But for me, the best holding midfielder in the world at the moment, especially from a defensive point of view. I think he's very, very good. His experience is really important. He's got to stay. Another player which I think needs to stay is Diogo Dalot. Now, maybe 12 months, 18 months ago, my answer might have been different. But I think this season, he's been really good. Now, again, a bit like Casemiro, he has had a bit of a wobble the last couple of months. However, I now think probably the last 2 weeks, we're starting to see what we saw before. We're starting to see that better side of Diogo Dalot again. Kind of had that blip after the World Cup. I think from a technical point of view, he's one of United's better players in terms of in the first phase. He's one of the players which takes his time on the ball, controls the ball, gets his head up, keeps the ball for his side, always had good percentage numbers in terms of his pass completion. And I think he's an important player. Do I think he is going to be the first choice right back next season? I'm not sure. And that's going to be the case with a few of these players because we don't know what United will do in the summer. But I would certainly be keeping Dalot either as the starting right back or as the backup. Next up, a bit of a controversial one. David De Gea. Where are we putting David De Gea? A lot of people will want him kept. A lot of people will want him sold. I have to be honest. I'm going with the latter. He just doesn't tick enough boxes of what United need in goal at the moment. In the modern day game, David De Gea isn't an elite goalkeeper. He has been in the past, and his shot stopping has been incredible in the past, etc. But there's too many fundamentals of the game which he simply doesn't do. His shot stopping has decreased massively. He doesn't really help the team on the ball. In fact, he has a net negative on the team in possession, if you ask me. He doesn't really sweep up behind a high line, and he doesn't claim crosses. Plus, the shot stopping deteriorating. For me, it's probably time that David De Gea is sold. And I think I'm going to say the same for Donny van de Beek. Now, this one, it's really disheartening to say it almost, because there is so much potential in Donny van de Beek, particularly under Erik Ten Hag. There is so much potential there for a really, really good player. And I think, again, when Erik Ten Hag has this squad where he really wants it to be and has United a really possession-dominant team, I think Donny van de Beek would be a really useful player. But I think kind of in the next 18 months, where it's going to take, the amount of time it's going to take to get to being that team, I think Donny van de Beek's going to struggle. Bruno Fernandes is going to play every game. He just always does. Unless injured, I don't really see how Donny van de Beek gets into the team. And this season, when he has had chances, the performances have been okay, but nothing special. This injury ending his season, really harsh, because he would have been used in this schedule, but he
He's had enough opportunities, in my opinion, over the past couple of years to prove himself, and he's never really kind of taken that opportunity. Now, next up, we've got two players where, again, I think it's really easy to decide. Christian Eriksen, 100% has to stay. I think he's done really well this season. He isn't elite in the role that he's playing, but he's being asked to play a completely different role to what he's done in his career, and I think he's doing it very, very well. Do I think United might upgrade in that position in the summer? Absolutely, but I think as a squad player, his experience, but also his ability from the bench, his ability to come in cup competitions in Europe, really useful player, really very good, had a brilliant first season for the club, and at the moment he's one of the most important midfielders. The team drops off so much the second he drops out, and it's the same for Bruno Fernandes as well. What a player Bruno Fernandes is. I think a lot of us had question marks about whether or not he would be an Erik ten Hag player. He's kind of shut up anyone who had that opinion. I was unsure personally. He's been absolutely brilliant again this season. In terms of if you look at his stats, the assists and things are a little bit low, but they should be a lot higher. If United are able to bring in a proper number 9 in the summer, watch Bruno Fernandes' numbers rocket up. I actually think this season some of his performances have been more complete than what we've seen in the past. A brilliant season and should probably be club captain next year. Next up, Harry Maguire, a player who, I'll be honest, I think everyone's going to be pretty unanimous on this. I think most people would agree it's time for Harry Maguire to move on. Personally, I'm of the opinion there is still a top centre-back in there for the right side. I just don't think United is the right team for him. I don't think he can do the role of what Erik ten Hag wants. He can't be that aggressive front-foot defender, but he also doesn't have the pace and the... what's the word for it? What's the word for it? I've completely lost my trail of thought here. The manoeuvrability, is that the word I'm looking for? To kind of be a cover defender. He doesn't have that athleticism to be a cover defender. I just don't think he really does either of the jobs that Ten Hag wants as a centre-back. So it's time for him to move on. You're not going to get anywhere near the 80 million you spent on him, but I think it's time to cut losses, let him go, and yeah, it's probably for the best. Maguire probably needs that fresh start in his career because it's just negative at United. The whole vibe with the fans, with everything, it's just negative. He doesn't need that in his life, so I think it'd be best if he moves on. I think it's best for both parties. Next up, Tyrone Malacia. He's another player which is obviously going to go into this keep column. Performance has recently been a little bit questionable. I thought he was improved at the weekend, but before that he had a couple of questionable games. I think he's had a really good first season. You've got to remember he cost 12 million, he's coming from Feyenoord. We weren't expecting a player to come in and be United's starting left back. I think he's a squad option. And as a squad option, I think he's done really well. Particularly with Luke Shaw often having been moved into centre back. Malacia's ability to play left back has been really useful for the team. So again, as a squad player, really very good. I don't think he's going to be a starting player anytime soon, but as a squad player, as a bit of depth, as competition, really, really good. Next up, Alejandro Garnacho. This might be the easiest decision on the list. Keep Garnacho at all costs. He's just signed a contract until 2028. Great player. Great player. I think probably the biggest compliment that you can give to him is how much worse the team has looked in the past few weeks while he's been injured. His impact off the bench in games this season has been absolutely phenomenal. Hopefully he can now quickly return from injury, recover, and we're going to see that till the end of the season. He's a phenomenal player, really, really good young player, and I mean, if he's smart, he gets a bit of luck with injuries, he's developed well and his mentality is good, he's going to have a career at the absolute highest level, like the top level. Really, really good player. So absolutely, he has to stay. Another player I'd be keeping, Tom Heaton. I mean, you know, if you're letting Jack Butland go, if you also let Tom Heaton go and De Gea, you've got a bit of a problem. You have no goalkeepers. So I'd keep Tom Heaton. I mean, again, he's not going to be first choice, but as a squad option, a bit of experience. If you need him, for example, in the Carabao Cup, you can bring him in. Yeah, I'd be keeping Tom Heaton. It's not really a big discussion point. Now, next up, we do have a real discussion point. Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Now, again, this is a player where I think, 5 months ago, you know, during the World Cup, before the World Cup, people would have been saying sell Aaron Wan-Bissaka in the summer, and I was of the same opinion, just because it didn't feel like Ten Hag trusted him. Ten Hag didn't really want to use him, but since the World Cup, he's come into a team quite a lot, actually, and been really very good. On the ball, I think he's improved on what he was doing before. I love his ball carrying. I think he's always had it, but I think he's improved further, and defensively, we all know what he's capable of. Do I think he has weaknesses? Yes, I don't think his passing is great. I think his defensive reading of the game could be better. But he's a good player. Is he one which United should be keeping? And it's a difficult one, this. I think long term, if we're talking about in 3 years' time, I don't think Aaron Wan-Bissaka will be at Manchester United. I think it's unlikely. But the problem is if you put him in this sell column here, for example, if you sell him, United then have to sign another right back in the summer because you can't just have Dalot. The question is right back a position which United should be prioritising? So this is where it's a little bit difficult. If Ten Hag wants to sign a right back, then you should sell Aaron Wan-Bissaka. If Ten Hag doesn't want to sign a right back, then you should keep him. So, where do we put him? I think I'm going to put him in sell. Because we've seen the Jurriën Timber links. We know that he can play right back. I think we've all seen the Jeremy Frimpong links. We know he is a very good right back. And Fabrizio Romano has spoke a few times about Ten Hag wanting to bring a new right back into the club. So I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka is going to go into the sell area. And I think the same for Anthony Elanga as well. He just isn't really in favour at the club. Again, he's not really ever used by Ten Hag, even in recent weeks when the squad's been a bit thin at times. Doesn't really get much of a chance, doesn't really get much of a look in. When he does play, does he prove himself? No. Do I think he's ever going to be an elite winger for Manchester United or a top club? Probably not. But I still think there's a very good player in there. I think he deserves to play in the Premier League, and he is at an age where he needs to be playing regular football. So even if he isn't sold, he should certainly look for a loan move. He shouldn't be at the club next season. But I think realistically you could sell him. I think there's plenty of teams in the Premier League that would be interested, and I think it would be good for his career. Unfortunately for him, he probably just isn't that Manchester United level. Now next up on the list we've got, I know I said Maguire was a pretty easy one. Phil Jones might be the easiest player on the list. Sell him. How many games has he played in the last 5 years? He can't do... I know it's harsh, right? He can't help it. He's got these injuries. It's really... I feel sorry for him, for his mental health and everything like that. But at the end of the day, football is a business. Manchester United are paying him a couple of 100,000, 400,000 or something a month to literally be unavailable. Weren't the talks the other week that he's completed one training session this season, if that? You can't pay him. You can't pay him to stay at the club. He should have been gone so long ago. Whoever gave him that new contract the other year is an absolute idiot. Phil Jones needs to be moved on. Especially when you've got players like Victor Lindelof at the club. Now, Lindelof is a player which might cause a little bit of disagreement, because people don't think he's good enough for the first team, but I done a video on it the other day, which I'll link. Really good player, if you ask me. I think he's a really good squad option. I think he's stepped up in recent weeks. Everyone was looking at it as the season being over, with Varane and Lisandro Martinez injured. Lindelof, for me, has been fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Great squad option. I'm not going to go too much in-depth on that one, because I done a video the other day. But yeah, keep Victor Lindelof, and also keep Lisandro Martinez. What a player. In fact, let's put him right up here. What a player Lisandro Martinez is. So good. One of the best centre-backs in the Premier League this season. He probably makes my team of the season. Just been absolutely brilliant the way he's adapted to a league. He is so important to the side, both in and out of possession. No-brainer. Keep Lisandro Martinez. Next up, we've got Facundo Pellistri, and I think this might be the first player on the list where I'm going to say, I think it's probably time for a loan move. Obviously, he's had loan moves in the past which haven't gone too well. This season he stayed with Manchester United and performed well when he's played. But I think it's time for a loan move again. I think next season you've got the competition of Amad Diallo returning. You've got Garnacho, you've got Rashford, you've got Sancho, you've got Antony. That's 5 wingers who, in my opinion, are all ahead of Pellistri. So it's time for a loan move. United need to get this one right, though. Because I actually think he's a really good player. And I really like his fundamentals. I really like his skill set. I think there is a good young player in there. This loan move has to be right, though. If this loan move goes wrong, then it could be a real problem for his career. Get this loan move right, though. Get him in the right environment. I think there's a good player there. So, yeah, Pellistri I'd be loaning. Good player. Needs minutes. A player who Manchester United cannot afford to loan out is Marcus Rashford. Now, if we're talking about top players or players that the club has to keep, Marcus Rashford. Where would this team be without him this season? Whether he's been left wing, up front, either of which I probably aren't even his best position. I think he's best as an inside forward. But his numbers this season, particularly since the World Cup, have been absolutely phenomenal. I know everyone turned on him last season, but I remember telling you guys, do not turn on Marcus Rashford. If the right manager comes in, he'll be quality again. Look what's happened. Exactly that. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. One of the most dangerous players on the planet at the moment. He has to stay at this football club. Give him whatever contract he wants. Keep Marcus Rashford, build a team around him because he is pure quality. The next player we have got down here is Marcel Sabitzer, of course, in the club on loan from Bayern Munich since January. What have his performances been like? decent. I thought it was a good loan move. I think with Eriksen out at the time, I think United needed Sabitzer. Those games against Leeds in January, February time, with also Casemiro suspended, would have been really difficult without Sabitzer in the squad. So I think he has done decent, but I'll be honest, I'm not keeping him. I think I'd let him go back to Bayern, look elsewhere for a midfielder. I think he's a really good player. But again, he's a player which should be playing first team football somewhere. I don't think he's going to have that at United. So unless he's content being on the bench, which I think is unlikely, he should probably go. He just isn't quite the profile which United need in the long term. But I think his loan move has been okay. I think he's done pretty decent. Another player who's done pretty decent recently is Jadon Sancho. Sancho. What do we say on Sancho? He's a really weird one, I guess. I mean, we all know the talent which Jadon Sancho has. Just can you get it out of him? Can Erik ten Hag get the talent out of Sancho? Now, let's make it clear, he's in the keeper pile, absolutely. He's a really good player on his day, phenomenal. And he has been given a chance in the last 7 or 8 games, and I think he's performed pretty well. A couple of off performances, but I think there's been some good performances in there as well. Again, he's one of those players where, when his team is closer to what Ten Hag wants, I think he'll be phenomenal. It's just a case of kind of getting to that point. He does need to sort himself out still a little bit mentally at times. We need to see a bit more drive and determination from him. But you've got to keep Jadon Sancho. I think he's just so good as a footballer that you've got to give him that bit of time. Because if you do, and it goes right, you have an absolute world beater. And like a genuine Ballon d'Or contender. He is that good. So, in my opinion, stick with him. I think most people would agree. One which people might not agree on as much, you can see down here, Anthony Martial. And before I even discuss this one, let's put him down here a second. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Before I say anything, would you be keeping Martial? Would you be keeping Martial at the club this summer and beyond? Because I'm really unsure. I think he's a top player. I think Ten Hag has said it several times that the team functions a lot better when he's in the team. We know how good he is at kind of retaining the ball. Usually, his passing is good. He's very good in tight spaces. His hold-up play is really underrated. He's a good finisher. I also think he's okay defensively as well. I think he's improved in that department. I don't think he's the most intense presser, but I think actually his intelligence when pressing is pretty decent. The problem is the injury record. I think that's the only problem, the injury record. Again, probably 4 or 5 months ago, I would have said to sell him. I think I would keep him. And, you know, the idea is that he's a backup striker next season who, you know, if your main striker gets injured, he can come in and replace them and you've got a quality player there. So yeah, I think keep Anthony Martial, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now, a player which I probably don't need to look into the comments for, Scott McTominay. I think everyone knows my opinion on him. Sell him. Again, I think he's a player which for another Premier League side would be really very good, and genuinely, I think he has the ability to be a top level Premier League player. I just don't think he suits what elite teams need at the moment. I think, you know, what Erik ten Hag wants, players who are happy to take the ball in tight spaces, operate in different systems, have that versatility about them, the intelligence, that tactical awareness. I just don't think Scott McTominay has that. But as a box-to-box midfielder for another club, I think it'd be good. So again, it's kind of a bit like Harry Maguire, maybe a bit like Aaron Wan-Bissaka. It's probably best for both parties if he leaves. I just think it's the best solution. If we go back down here, Luke Shaw, keep. For me, he's the best left-back in the world when he's on form. Question is, with him always, can he stay on form? Can he stay fit? This year, he has done a much better job of staying fit, and his form has been very, very good. It's important that Ten Hag manages him well, and that's why it's important that you have players like Malacia around. Keep that competition, but keep Luke Shaw in the right mental state, and you've got a quality player. Same with Rafael Varane, quality player. Will he be first choice next season? I'm not too sure. I think his injury record is a problem. I think his profile isn't perfect to what Ten Hag wants, so I would not be at all surprised to see a centre-back come into the club this summer. However, I think he's had a really good season. I think his leadership traits are very useful to the squad. So yeah, I'd keep Rafael Varane. Fred, I'm keeping. Now, the reason I'm keeping Fred is because I think we've got rid of too many players. Now, again, a bit like Wan-Bissaka maybe. In 18 months, do I see Fred being at the club? Probably not. But I just don't think United can afford to let go of 3 midfielders in Donny van de Beek, McTominay and Fred, plus also the load of Sabitzer. I think it's just too many players to let go, so I think you probably have to keep Fred for another season. He's a good squad player from the bench. His energy is very important. I mean, he showed his worth in those games against Barcelona, kind of during that fixture run. He was really very good. Recently, he struggled to get into the team and had a couple of bad performances. I'd stick with him for one more season, see how it goes. If it doesn't work next season, kind of ship him off. I don't think he'll be first choice next season, but I'd give him one more year. And then finally, Wout Weghorst, let him go back. Again, been really useful. Really, really useful. Like Sabitzer. For me, it's actually been a really good loan. I know people will talk about his numbers. But again, when we've had spells where Rashford's been injured, Martial has been injured, Sancho has been unavailable away from the squad, Antony has had injuries, Weghorst has always been available. And when he plays, he gives absolutely everything, which can't be said for all of his players. So I think he's had a really good loan spell. Fair play to him. But long term moving forward, is he good enough to be the first choice striker for Manchester United? No, he simply doesn't score enough goals. Martial would then be ahead of him in the pecking order for kind of that second choice striker. So there's not much point in him staying. So yeah, let Weghorst go back to his club. But yeah, I think those are my final thoughts for this. Maybe the one player I would be tempted to change would be Wan-Bissaka, and also Fred actually. Those are the two players which I would be uncertain on. The rest of them though, at this moment in time, that is what I would be saying. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you agree? Of course, this will change to some extent between now and the end of the season. There's still plenty of games to play. Players are going to impress in that time. Players are going to disappoint in that time. So inevitably, opinions will change slightly. But as of today, the 2nd of May, at 10:25 in the morning, that is kind of how I would be dealing with the squad. It's what I see the squad the sort of squad shake-up that I see happening in the summer. It gives United the ability to bring some money in with sales of Donny van de Beek, Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, McTominay, Elanga. You can get some money for those players. And also the contracts that they're on as well. Losing those would be very, very useful. It leaves United with a very decent squad, which needs some signings. Some real signings need to come in this summer. Hopefully Ten Hag is backed in the right way and chooses to sign the right players. But yeah, that's a conversation for a different day in terms of who do you bring in. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, something a little bit different. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you'd like more of this content, maybe for other clubs as well, that could be interesting. Apart from that, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed the video. As always, I will see you in the next one.